Hey there, guys. It's Lane. It's been a while since I've done a video. Been pretty busy with life and school. But we're in a football pool, and the last 2 weeks have been pretty miserable. So I decided we're going to do one with a few pops in us and see what happens. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. Either way, we're hoping it's good content. So first one up is Oklahoma, Nebraska. Oklahoma's the 11-point favorite. We're going with Oklahoma. Nebraska just fired their coach, Scott Frost, as everyone knows. Nebraska's played miserable all year. First 2 weeks have been pretty bad, and then they blew a lead against Nebraska week 0. So Oklahoma on that one. Indiana, Western Kentucky. Indiana, there's not much to say about this game. Western Kentucky has a couple good wins against bad teams, so we're going to go with Indiana. Syracuse, Purdue. I told myself after Purdue blew the lead against Penn State, I wouldn't bet on Purdue, or I wouldn't choose Purdue to win in this poll, but I don't think Syracuse has what it takes to beat Purdue. Purdue's going to figure out that run game, and Purdue's going to take this one. Now, Notre Dame, California. Notre Dame's a 10-point favorite. Quarterback's injured, out for season, coming off 2 horrible losses. Notre Dame's going to pull this one out and cover the spread. Oregon, BYU. I don't know if BYU has that dog in them. Zach Wilson left. Must have took all the moms with him. We're still going to roll with BYU over Oregon, though. I don't think Oregon's offense is impressive. They got completely shut down by Georgia, who has a very good defense, by the way. But BYU has shown they can go the length, they can go overtime, they can do what it takes to win. So we're rolling with BYU. Next is Penn State, Auburn. Sean Clifford's been, at Penn State for 8 years now? And he's yet to figure out what he wants to do in his life. But we're still going to roll with Penn State. Auburn's pretty dismal this year, so we're going to roll with Penn State on this one. Northern Illinois and Vanderbilt's the next one up. I love Vandy. I figured they could maybe have a good season. They were atop the SEC for 2 weeks. We're still going to roll with Northern Illinois. It should be easy for them. Vanderbilt doesn't have a defense or an offense, or they barely have a team. Houston, Kansas. Houston is the 10-point favorite. Kansas offense has looked really good in the first 3 weeks, but first 2 weeks, Houston just came off a big loss to Texas Tech. Texas Tech took them the distance. I think Houston wants some revenge in this game. They got to get back in the top 25. I'm going to go with Houston in this. I think they're going to figure out their offense, and Kansas's offense is going to have to actually go up against a decent defense. So we'll see what happens there. Next is Mississippi State and LSU. I'm an LSU fan, so this one's hard, but I still think LSU, there's no spread in our poll on this one, so I think LSU is going to win. Mississippi State is Mississippi State. They don't impress me much, but I think they're going to maybe lay a goose egg here against LSU. Next is Ohio State and Toledo. Ohio State, obviously a 32-point favorite. Ohio State has failed to cover in both games this year. So I'm going to roll with Toledo on this one because I think Toledo is yet again going to figure out how to keep Ohio State within that 32-point range. Saying that, Ohio State's probably going to cover now because that's usually what happens. But Toledo did take them to the brink in 2011, so maybe it'll happen again. North Carolina State and Texas Tech is up next. North Carolina State is a 10-point favorite. Texas Tech coming off a big win against a top 25 opponent and an in-state opponent. I'm going to roll with Texas Tech covering the spread. NC State, I don't know much about them. They're in the ACC, obviously. I don't know if they're going to be able to cover that spread. Texas Tech looked pretty good against Houston for being the underdog. Next is Washington and Michigan State, which Michigan State is ranked. Washington isn't, but Michigan State is the underdog in this game, according to ESPN. So we're going to roll with Michigan State on this. Was my number one school when I wanted to go to college. They've looked decent. Quarterback play has been terrible. Threw 2 or 3 interceptions against Akron. Not looking good. But their defense is pretty good, so I don't know if Washington will be able to beat them. Next is Maryland and SMU. I got Maryland in this one. I think Tua's younger brother is a really good quarterback, and I think he will be able to pick apart SMU. Maryland may actually be a team to watch out for this year. They do have good quarterback play, good running back. Next is Texas and UTSA, which is the University of Texas at San Antonio. So technically these are the same schools. But this is the first time that UTSA has come into Austin to play Texas. Texas is the 12-point favorite. UTSA has been kind of on a heater lately. Texas coming off the big loss to Alabama, where they probably would have won if Quinn Ewers would have been in, but he got hurt in first quarter. I don't know if Texas is going to cover this spread. Their backup's hurt. Their third string hasn't done any reps with the first string in the first 2 weeks or any of the offseason. So we're going to roll with UTSA. May regret that pick, but I think they're going to cover that 12-point spread. UTSA will. Next is Texas, El Paso, and New Mexico. I don't know anything about either of these teams. So we're going to roll with Texas, El Paso. We'll take the favorite there. Next is Texas A&M and Miami. Obviously, Texas A&M coming off of a huge loss against App State. Them and Michigan fit in the same boat together. I'm going to roll with Miami. I think Crystal Ball is going to get them ready to go against Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher hasn't been able to build a quarterback since Jameis, when Jameis stole all those crab legs. So we're going to go with Miami here. Next is USC and Fresno State. USC, the 12-point favorite. Caleb Williams and this offense are just too good. They're not going to – Fresno State's not going to be able to slow them down. USC is going to cover that spread pretty easily. Next is North Dakota State and Arizona. I've actually struggled with this one because Arizona actually came out the first week and played very well. Laid an egg last week. But North Dakota State shouldn't beat Arizona. But I'm going to roll with North Dakota State. We'll see what happens there. Should be a decent game. I mean, South Dakota took Iowa to the brink, and we know that Iowa is actually not a good team this year. Their quarterback play is worse than me or any of you watching this out there playing. Next and final college pick is Arizona State and Eastern Michigan. Arizona State with the 20-point favorite here. I'm still going to go with Arizona State. I don't know much about them or Eastern Michigan for that point, but I think Arizona State's going to cover this one. They probably won't now. I mean, that's usually how it works, but I think Arizona State's going to get this. So for my college picks, we're primarily favorites. There's only a few underdogs, but my big ones, I don't think Ohio State's going to cover. They somehow figure out a way to not cover. UTSA is going to cover against Texas, and that's pretty much my two big upsets. LSU, Mississippi State's really close. BYU, Oregon's pretty close. That's just ESPN and Vegas's way of figuring out what they're going to do there. So we're going to move on to NFL. First game up is Cleveland and New York Jets. Well, I'm a Cleveland fan, so we're rolling with Cleveland regardless. I don't think Joe Flacco can – he's so immobile now that Myles Garrett's going to be in the backfield. Jadeveon Clowney's going to be in the backfield. JOK is going to be in the back. I mean, the Jets aren't going to have a chance. Chubb and Hunt are going to run all over them like they did the Panthers. So Cleveland on this one. Next is Detroit and Washington. Detroit is the favorite. I'm going with Washington because Carson Wentz is not a bad quarterback, and he has some really good receivers. 2 Ohio State alums. But I think that Washington's going to win this one. Defensively, Detroit has a good running back, bad quarterback, and 1 good wide receiver. Not gonna win them games. So Tampa and New Orleans. I'm taking the underdog in New Orleans. After watching last week of New Orleans and Jameis Winston playing in the fourth quarter and throwing for more yards than pretty much every other quarterback all week in one quarter, I think New Orleans is going to shock Tampa. Tampa's O-line is pretty shot. Their defense has holes. Tom Brady's not playing like Tom Brady. Leonard Fournette is not playoff Lenny yet. I can't see Tampa pulling this one out. I think New Orleans' D-line is going to eat up Tampa's offensive line. But we'll see. New Orleans has a lot of good wide receivers, and Jameis Winston is not a terrible quarterback, so we'll see what happens there. Next is New York Giants and the Carolina Panthers. I have the Carolina Panthers. Baker started to figure out. Baker got back to Baker in the second half of that game. If he'd have played that way the whole game, the Panthers would have won against the Browns. So I'm rolling with Carolina. I think Baker's is back to Baker. He's going to come out there and light up the New York Giants defense. Just because Saquon's back doesn't mean the Giants are good. The Giants are still bad. They have one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Next is New England and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just lost TJ Watt for 6 weeks at least. Najee Harris is out too. They're looking pretty rough, but New England looked really bad against Miami. So this is my bad team. This is my bad game in the week. I mean, them and Indy and Jacksonville are pretty bad. So I'm going to go against myself here, and I'm going to go with New England. I thought they were going to pull it off last week. I know Bill Belichick has those guys dialed in, but I don't know how their offense is just terrible. So we'll roll with New England. We'll see what happens there. Next is Indianapolis and Jacksonville. This one will probably end in a tie. Like, let's be real. Jacksonville and Houston are both terrible. Indy should be decent, but Indy tied Houston. So I'm gonna say it right now, this game will end in a tie. But since I have to pick someone, I'm gonna pick Jacksonville to get their first win of the year. Both these teams are terrible, apparently. So we'll move on to Baltimore and Miami. I got Baltimore. Baltimore looked good. They came out of the gates. Apparently, the running back can throw the ball. So I don't think Tua's that accurate. Their defense isn't that great. Just because you have Tyreek Hill doesn't mean the world's going to come together. So I'm going to take Baltimore on this one. LA Rams in Atlanta. LA giving my Atlanta 10 points. Taking Atlanta. LA looked miserable on Thursday against the Bills. I think Atlanta will come out and cover that spread. Their offense looked decent. Their defense needs to get better, obviously. And I don't think the Rams can figure out anything at this point. They rely on Cooper Kupp too much. They're trying to figure out. I mean, they roll out, they spread the field, and Stafford looks immediately at Cooper Kupp. He doesn't look anywhere else. He has nowhere else to look right now. Van Jefferson was pretty silent. Cam Akers obviously was silent. Henderson did well. I mean, but they still played terrible. So the next game is San Francisco giving 10 points to Seattle. I'm taking Seattle on this one. They shocked the world on Monday Night Football and beat Russell Wilson in his return. San Francisco looked very bad with Trey Lance. I'm pretty sure everyone can agree he's not. Jimmy G's better than Trey Lance. Trey Lance won't figure that one out. So we'll go with Seattle on that one. Next is Dallas and Cincy. Dak is out. Cooper Rush is starting quarterback. We're going with Cincy. I think Joe's going to have a bounce back. So is Jamar Chase. The defense will step up. Dallas is going to take the loss on this one. Next is Denver and Houston. Denver giving Houston 10 points. I think Denver's going to cover this spread. I just have a gut feeling Russell Wilson's going to come out here and play some actual offense this time. Maybe throw the ball on 4th and 1. Oh wait, they've done that before. Houston got lucky and played a really bad Colts team week 1. So Houston's equally bad. So next is Las Vegas and Arizona. I'm going to take Las Vegas in this one. At first I had Arizona, but I think Kyler Murray is too focused on Call of Duty. Their defense looked like it was in shambles. Their offense looked much better. It hurts not having DeAndre Hopkins. He's one of the best receivers in the league. So we're going to roll with Vegas. Yeah, we're going to roll with Vegas. I don't really have any reasons why. I think Derek Carr is going to be able to find any receiver he wants against this defense. But, I mean, you can tell Green Bay is definitely missing their wide receivers. So we're going to move on to Green Bay and Chicago. Green Bay is giving Chicago 10 points. Is the Aaron Rodgers week 1 bye week a fluke, or is it going to happen again this year? I'm picking Chicago to cover this. I don't know if Aaron is going to... He has no receivers. That's his problem. He lost Devontae Adams to Vegas. I mean, Vegas is going to be able to throw to Devontae all day. Aaron is throwing to a lot of nobodies. So I'm thinking Chicago is going to cover this spread. Chicago looked really good against the 49ers in a monsoon, so we'll see. This one Aaron will probably drop a 40 or a 50 burger on him. Next is Buffalo and Tennessee. Buffalo giving Tennessee 10 points. Tennessee gave the game away to the New York Giants, the New York Football Giants. Buffalo is not going to give them the game away. Buffalo is going to throw all over this defense. Tennessee has Derrick Henry. Congrats. He may be able to run, but he's not going to be able to keep up with the passing attack of Jared Allen. So Jared Allen's going to pretty much cook up the Tennessee defense. It's going to probably be more than 10. I'd say 15 to 20 points. Philadelphia and Minnesota. Philly ran the ball well, played well against Detroit. Detroit is not very good. They do have a good running back. But Philadelphia's playing Minnesota, who kept Aaron Rodgers in check. I'm still going with Philly. Philly is actually one of my Super Bowl picks. Buffalo and Philly together. So I'm going to take Philly in this one. I think they're going to be... Jalen Hurts is going to be able to find Devontae... Or no. He's going to be able to find Devontae Smith. They're actually going to get the passing game going this week because Minnesota has 2 good running backs. They'll be able to practice against it. I don't see Minnesota being able to keep up with Philly. Philly's going to try to push the tempo. So we'll figure out how this goes. So, yeah, those are my picks. We'll see what happens. It could be either good or really bad, but we're still going to do it. So if you want to listen to me do this every week, go ahead and subscribe.